Guys, welcome to another edition of the Screen Team. My name is Chris. I'll be doing the hosting duties for this round of Screen Team reviews for you. Matt, he's going to be giving the reviews and letting us know if these movies are good, bad, indifferent, and we're going to start off with a classic, and hopefully Matt liked this one because I really enjoyed it. We're talking about The Searchers. This is a classic John Wayne film, and not your typical John Wayne type of role. First up, Matt, Searchers. Was this a movie? Had you ever seen this movie before?
Oh, yeah. This is a movie I actually bought for my father years back, mostly because it was a movie that I wanted. One of those gifts that you buy somebody in case they don't like it, you do.
Right. I hope you enjoy this movie.
That's right. Well, we're both big John Wayne fans. My dad and I are. He introduced me to John Wayne, and this is one of the most critically acclaimed of all John Wayne's and John Ford, the director's body of work. And as you said, this isn't a typical role for John Wayne. He plays kind of a bad guy. He's definitely a good guy, but he has some negative traits. He's a bigot. He's a racist. He doesn't like Native Americans. He just came off fresh from the Civil War and even the Native American and American War at that same time.
Right.
And so he had his prejudices. And Steven Spielberg talked about this when AFI did their second round of the greatest movies of all time in American history in 2007, and said it challenges you to almost root and sympathize with a bigot, with a racist character. And of course the story ultimately is about his redemption at the end. But for the most of it, he is a very compelling character and a likable character, but not a wholly moral character. He has his ethics, but he's not a complete white hat like he had typically played before this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of gray in this film, and I think that's why I enjoy it. I enjoy the standard John Wayne films where he's there to kick butt and take names and all that stuff. But this one, there's more depth to it. There's more intrigue. There's more. What's up with John Wayne, man? Why is he acting like this? And it's a deeper film, and you get the impression on how awesome this film is from the very, very first scene when you're inside the house that's on
the house. I can't call it the prairie, but out in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
The cinematography in this film is, I think, the finest I've ever seen out of any film. I hate to exaggerate, but man, it is just, I can't think of anything that really beats it. John Ford always had great cinematography in his movies, and his cinematographer's name, I apologize, it escapes me currently, but it's just every shot in this film is like a painting. It's like a beautiful picture. It speaks 1,000 words and then some. And especially the closing shot where John Wayne has, not to give away too much, but at the end there's a resolution. He delivers what he said he'll deliver, and gets one of his friends home and his family member home, and there's a wedding, and he doesn't go inside for the wedding, for the ceremonies and for the celebration. A lot of scholars, film history, have analyzed the ending and said that it's kind of John Ford's way of saying that it's like, the great men who have paved the way for peaceful times are often warmongers themselves, and they can never enjoy those peaceful times. Either they die off, or they just simply, can't live to enjoy peaceful times. And so that was kind of like their way of saying, kind of closing the chapter on the Wild West, as it were, and also on a more, for lack of a better term, uncivilized time.
Yeah, this movie is really, really incredible. Who's going to like this movie? Can the younger generation get anything out of this film? I
think so. The historical precedent set with this film is very important. Again, it deals with racism. It's something that we'll always deal with. Hatred and ignorance are unfortunately things we'll always have. But the good news is that they are reversible, and this is something that the movie shows. The story, which we haven't touched on as much, was that John Wayne's family had been attacked by a rogue gang of Indians who had killed most of them and taken his niece, Natalie Wood, hostage, and raised her to be their own. He spends 5 years with one of their family friends tracking them down, as you later find out, to kill her, because he can't stand the idea of her being raised by Native Americans, and can't stand the idea of her not being, of her own family being a different person. And again, ultimately, it's a story of redemption, but that is the majority of the film, and it's something that I think is highly relatable and very compelling, and I think most, even from this generation, would find it a very interesting story. You know, it's very captivating. I think the only thing that might feel dated today would be the battle scenes. You know, the fight scenes in it are good, but they're not what we're used to today. You know, but they had standards and practices back then that just don't allow for the kind of violence that we expect out of most movies, and especially westerns today. Like, it's not gonna be like the battle, you know, the shootout the OK Corral in Tombstone, but it's still, especially for its time, very good and very entertaining.
Yeah, very much so. You know, we mentioned from the very beginning this is not your typical John Wayne type film, but there are instances where we see, you know, the John Wayne persona come out. You know, I remember the one scene where they realize that John Wayne's brother and his family are going to be attacked by the rogue set of Indians, and they're miles away from it, you know, and the one adopted son's like, we got to go back. Let's go, you know. And John Wayne's like, now you better just stay here and we better arrest these horses. And he's like, what do you know, John Wayne? I'm getting out of here, you know. And he's like, all right there, partner.
That'll be the day. If you can't tell, awesome. We enjoyed this movie a lot. So.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, for all those John Wayne folks, you know, fans, you definitely get that type of, you know, bigger persona, John Wayne type type character. But yeah, it's much deeper than most films that he's usually in. So The Searchers, you said some aspects of it are a little bit dated. Would you like to see this movie remade?
No. Absolutely not.
Amen, brother.
No, anything with John Wayne, typically, unless it's Attila, I don't think needs to be remade. It stands the test of time. He was really an underrated actor for his time. He really had some fantastic roles, this being one of the tops, along with True Grit, Red River, you know,
Quiet Man.
The Quiet. Oh gosh, I love Quiet Man. Thank you for mentioning that.
You're welcome.
So it's great, and this was one that AFI ranked as number 11 out of the top 100 movies in American history. So above even Star Wars, which was at number 12 in 2007. It's a highly regarded film, and there's a lot of reasons why.
Well, and a lot of the reasons are because a lot of those directors that we love today, the Steven Spielbergs, the George Lucases, they've got a lot of their inspiration from this movie.
From John Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Highly inspirational director, you know, very, very influential. I think a lot of his films were even influential on a lot of the samurai films we would see out of Japan, which later in turn influenced a lot of the later Western films, you know, like Magnificent Seven.
So a movie's called The Searchers. It's got John Wayne, it's got Natalie Wood, great cast, great movie. It really, really is. So if you get a chance, highly recommended from both Matt and myself. Matt's going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to review the movie, what's it called? Superbad. Superbad's next, right here on the Screen Team.